Hey Solibus fam, I've got something special coming up. I'll be narrating horror stories from your state. Drop your state in the comments below, and you might hear a terrifying story from your own backyard soon. Let's get started.
My cousin Austin was a sheriff's deputy in Montgomery County, Arkansas. Small-town cop in a quiet part of the state. Mostly dealt with drunk drivers, the occasional domestic dispute, maybe a meth bust once in a blue moon. Nothing that prepared him for what ended up killing him. They said it was a heart attack. Sudden. No prior symptoms. I remember sitting in that stuffy funeral home with his parents, listening to the sheriff give a eulogy about how some men are born to wear the badge, and all that. But something about it didn't sit right with me. Austin was 34. No history of heart problems. Ran 5 miles every morning, didn't drink, didn't smoke. He was solid, sharp, the kind of guy who always had your back, even if you didn't deserve it. I found out later that he died during a routine welfare checkout near Mount Ida, a trailer home listed to a man named Keith Waller. The 911 call had come from a neighbor who hadn't seen Keith in over a week and noticed a rancid smell coming from inside. Austin responded solo, since the area was rural and backup was at least 20 minutes out. The department ruled it natural causes after finding Austin collapsed just inside the door, face down. But here's the part that never made the reports. His body cam was missing. Now, I work in tech, nothing glamorous, just back-end stuff for a surveillance firm. I know a bit about data, time codes, metadata, all the invisible stuff behind a video file. So when Austin's sister told me she got a weird flash drive in the mail about a month after the funeral, I offered to take a look. The drive was unmarked, old, scratched up. It only had one file on it, 2024-10-15-bodycam.mp4. I'll never forget watching it for the first time. It was raw footage, no cuts, no edits. Timestamped, starting at 2:37 p.m. on October 15th. It showed Austin driving up a gravel path toward a beat-up trailer, the front door slightly ajar. His voice was calm but alert. "Dispatch, this is Unit 5. I'm at the residence. No sign of movement. Gonna proceed with a knock and announce." He got out, approached the door, knocked. "Sheriff's Department. Mr. Waller, you home? We got a welfare call." Nothing. The camera jittered as he stepped inside. Immediately, you could see how bad it was. The place was trashed, garbage everywhere, mold on the walls, piles of old newspapers and dishes, flies buzzing around. "Smells like death in here," Austin muttered. He moved slowly down a narrow hall, toward the back of the trailer. "Dispatch, I got a possible DOA. Gonna do a sweep, then call it in." That's when the footage started getting weird. The audio cracked, a sharp, popping static that made my speakers whine. The timestamp glitched, skipping ahead 5 seconds, then 10, then snapping back. Austin entered what looked like a bedroom. The bed was stripped, mattress covered in dark stains. More flies, but no body. Then he turned toward the closet. It was open just a crack, just enough. "Mr. Waller, if you're in there, I need you to come out slowly," Austin said. His hand hovered over his holster, but he didn't draw. He stepped closer, reached for the door. The closet door swung open, and the footage froze. Just for a second. A single, awful second where the image locked in place and all you could see was a dark figure crouched inside. Not a man. Not Keith Waller. It looked wrong. Too thin. Limbs folded like a spider's. The face was blurred, but not because of motion. Like the camera refused to focus on it. Then the footage resumed. Austin screamed. That's the only time I've ever heard fear in his voice. He backed up, yelling, "What the hell? Get on the ground. Get on the goddamn ground." The figure didn't move. It just stood up, slowly, unfolding. The footage glitched again, the camera sputtered, the timestamp jumped. For 2 full minutes, the video went black. The audio remained, heavy breathing, static, then what sounded like whispering. Dozens of overlapping voices, too fast to understand. Some of it was in English, some of it wasn't. Then silence. The video came back, shaky and tilted. Austin's body was lying halfway in the hallway, unmoving. The figure was gone. That was the end of the file. I sat there staring at the screen for a long time. Rewatched it. Paused it frame by frame. Every time I tried to scrub through the glitched section, the file crashed. I gave the drive to a friend who works in digital forensics. He tried to recover the missing minutes, said the metadata didn't make sense. The file behaved like it was recorded by something else entirely. Different signature, like it switched devices mid-recording. He said, and I quote, "It's like the camera saw something it wasn't supposed to and shorted out." I took it to the sheriff's office a few days later, asked if they'd seen this footage. The receptionist said the official report listed the body cam as irretrievable due to equipment malfunction. I asked to speak to the sheriff directly. They told me he was on leave, indefinitely. The next morning, I got a call from an unlisted number. A voice said, "Stop asking about Deputy Langley. You weren't meant to see that footage." Then they hung up. No threats, just a statement. I tried to show the file to Austin's sister again, but when I opened the drive, it was empty. Not even a partition to restore. Just gone. Here's what haunts me, though. I slowed the footage to 1/4 speed and enhanced the frame right before the closet opened. The figure, whatever it was holding something. A small black rectangle clipped to its chest. Austin's body cam. It wasn't missing. It was taken. I used to buy and flip foreclosed properties across the southern states, mostly Arkansas and Mississippi. Dirt cheap homes in the middle of nowhere, most of them left to rot for years. It wasn't glamorous work, moldy walls, animal infestations, meth residue, but the profit margins were solid if you knew how to work fast and keep costs low. Last year, I picked up a small 3-bedroom house outside a forgotten town called Caddo Gap, Arkansas. The place was overgrown, the grass tall enough to hide a body, and the mailbox looked like it had been smacked by a truck. The listing said it had been abandoned since 2018, after the original owner passed away with no next of kin. I bought it at auction without even seeing the inside. That's how cheap it was. The first time I drove out there, I almost missed the turnoff. The GPS signal died 10 miles outside of town, and the gravel road leading to the house wasn't even marked. Just a rusted fence and a crumbling wooden sign that said private in faded red paint. The house sat on a couple of acres surrounded by thick trees. No neighbors in sight. I parked, got out, and did my usual walk around. The place was a mess. Rotting porch, peeling paint, vines growing straight through the siding. But structurally, it was solid. The foundation was good. The roof had held. The inside smelled like mildew and rat piss, but nothing I hadn't dealt with before. Out back, near the tree line, was what looked like an old drain field for the septic system. There was a square metal grate about 3 feet wide, half buried in dirt and leaves. I figured it was some kind of access point or runoff drain. It smelled faintly of old sewage, and I didn't think much of it. I spent the first week cleaning out junk, tearing up carpet, scrubbing black mold off the walls. The nights were quiet out there, eerily quiet. No cars, no coyotes, not even crickets. Just stillness. One night, around midnight, I stepped out to smoke and I heard this faint, high-pitched sound, almost like a whimper. I froze. It was so faint I thought I might have imagined it. But then it came again. A soft, breathy sob. It was coming from the direction of the grate. I walked over with my flashlight. The beam cut through the trees, catching on the metal cover. I crouched down and listened. Nothing. Just silence again. I figured maybe a raccoon or stray dog had gotten stuck down there. I tapped the metal with my boot. No response. I shrugged it off and went back inside. Over the next few nights, the sounds kept coming. Always late, after midnight. Sometimes crying, sometimes just breathing. One time, I swear I heard someone whisper something too quiet to understand, but definitely human. I told myself it was probably some animal. Maybe the drain led to a dry cistern or a broken tank and something was nesting in it. Curiosity finally got the better of me. I grabbed my pry bar and went out there one afternoon. The grate was heavy, rusted in place, but with enough force, I managed to lift it and drag it aside. Beneath it was a dark, circular hole maybe 6 feet deep. At the bottom, a slanted concrete pipe disappeared into the ground. I lowered my flashlight into the hole and shined it inside. There were scratches all along the concrete. Deep ones. Fingernail marks. The smell hit me then, not sewage, but something else. Something older. Like wet earth, copper, and rot. I dropped the flashlight and backed away fast. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the sound, that breathy, fragile sob, and those claw marks. At 2 a.m., I heard it again, this time clearer. A woman's voice, whispering, "Please." That word froze my blood. It wasn't just noise, it was speech. Pleading. Desperate. I grabbed my flashlight and went back outside. The night was still. No wind. No bugs. Just the distant ticking of a wind chime on the porch. I crouched by the open hole and whispered, "Hello?" Silence. Then, after a few seconds, the voice came again. "Help me." It was so clear, so human. I could hear the raw panic in her voice, like her throat was torn from screaming for years. I lowered the flashlight and saw something move, a pale hand reaching up from the dark, fingers twitching. I stumbled back and fell hard. When I looked again, the hand was gone. I slammed the grate back over the hole and put a cinder block on top of it. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the living room with a hammer in one hand and my phone in the other, waiting for a signal. Nothing. By morning, I convinced myself I'd hallucinated the whole thing. Maybe the mold exposure was messing with me. I spent that day packing up tools, ready to get the hell out and cut my losses. But then I found something in the basement. Behind the furnace was a hidden panel in the wall. I only noticed it because of the draft coming through the seams. I pried it open and found a narrow crawl space leading to a dirt room beneath the house. There was a mattress down there, chains on the wall, a bucket, and bones. Small ones. Human. I called the sheriff's office from the gas station 20 miles away. When they showed up, I told them everything. They brought cadaver dogs and forensic crews. Turned out the property had once belonged to a man named Alvin Prater, a recluse with no family, presumed dead years ago. But no one had ever searched the property thoroughly. They found remains in the drain field, multiple skeletons, mostly women, all of them dismembered, buried in the soil and inside the septic runoff. They said the hole under the grate led to a dry holding tank, but the pipe was just for runoff, not connected to the main system. More like a bunker. One of the detectives asked me how I found it. I just said, I heard her. She looked at me and didn't say a word. A few weeks later, I read a follow-up article online. Forensics had identified at least 4 women. One of them had been missing since 2014. The last entry on her missing person report said she was last seen getting into a pickup with a man offering cheap rent on a room. His name wasn't Alvin. It was Derek Halverston, a fake name Prater used, the last known owner of the house. I sold the property for a loss and never went back. But sometimes, usually when I'm alone in a quiet place, I swear I can still hear her voice. Not pleading this time, not crying, just whispering something I can't quite make out. Like she's still down there, watching. Waiting. After my divorce, I moved to a quiet stretch of Arkansas to get away from everything. No more big cities, no more pressure, no more familiar faces. I rented a 1-bedroom place outside Glenwood, did some freelance tutoring online, and mostly kept to myself. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me time to breathe. One morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. The woman on the other end had a warm, soft voice and said she was from Barrow Creek Preparatory, a private school just a few towns over. She said they were in desperate need of a substitute English teacher for a short-term spot, 2 weeks, maybe less, and that someone had given them my name. I'd never heard of the place. Barrow Creek. I asked, "Where exactly is that?" She laughed gently and said, "It's not far, just past the county line. GPS can be a little off, so I'll send you written directions." A courier dropped them off later that day, handwritten, in perfect cursive, on yellowed paper that smelled faintly like cloves. It mapped out a winding backroad path through dirt lanes and old logging roads. Something about it felt off, but I needed the money. So the next morning, I packed a lunch, got in my car, and followed the directions. The roads got narrow fast. Thick pine forest on either side, the kind where light barely touches the ground. I lost cell service about 20 minutes in. Then the pavement gave way to gravel, then dirt. Finally, just when I was about to turn around, I saw a wrought iron gate appear through the trees. Black metal, flanked by 2 moss-covered pillars. Barrow Creek Preparatory was carved into a wooden sign, barely legible through years of weather and neglect. The gate was open. I drove through. The school was a large, old brick building 3 stories high, with arched windows and ivy climbing up the sides. The place looked like something out of a different century. There was no flagpole, no playground, no school buses. Just a gravel lot with a few dusty cars parked along the edge. As I stepped inside, the first thing that hit me was the silence. No ringing bell, no chatter, just a low hum, like old electricity through thick walls. A tall woman met me in the foyer. She introduced herself as Headmistress Caro, and her presence was commanding. Sharp suit, pale skin, eyes like cloudy glass. She didn't shake my hand, just nodded. "The children are quiet," she said. "Order is very important here." She handed me a thin packet, the day schedule, and led me to the classroom. The halls were dim, lit by those old, buzzing tube lights. Every step echoed too loud. When I stepped into the classroom, the students were already sitting, 20 or so kids, ranging from about 10 to maybe 14. Every single one of them wore the same uniform: black slacks, white button-up shirts, and old-fashioned ties. No smiles, no whispering, just blank stares. "Good morning," I said, trying to sound upbeat. They answered in perfect unison, "Good morning, Mr. Eldon." I blinked. The voice was 1, not 20. Chillingly synchronized. That first day was weird. They didn't ask questions. They didn't fidget. They wrote everything I said down exactly, even when I went off topic. I tried slipping in a joke about Shakespeare. Nothing. Just pencils scratching paper. During lunch, I wandered the halls. No noise. No signs of life besides the occasional slow-footed child passing me with downcast eyes. I tried to find the main office, but every door I opened seemed to lead to the same hallway again. I finally stepped outside for air. The woods beyond the school looked darker than before, and I could have sworn the sky was slightly off, like dusk had come early. That night, back at home, I tried to look up the school. Nothing. No website. No reviews. No mention of it in any state records. Even Google Maps just showed blank forest where I knew the building stood. I called the number that had first contacted me. Disconnected. The next morning, I almost didn't go back, but something made me. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe something deeper. When I walked into the classroom, the students all turned in perfect time, like birds pivoting in sync. On the blackboard was something I hadn't written. "Mr. Eldon will not leave." I stared at it, turned to the kids. Who wrote this? No answer. I walked to the board and wiped it off. Halfway through that day, a boy in the back row raised his hand. It was the first time any of them had made an unscripted move. "Yes," I said, trying not to show my surprise. He looked up at me with those same cloudy eyes as the headmistress. His voice was flat, emotionless. "Do you know who built the school?" I shook my head. He nodded slowly, almost as if checking something off in his mind. "Then you may still leave." Before I could respond, the headmistress stepped into the room. "Mr. Eldon, may I see you in the hall?" I followed her. She didn't speak for a moment. Then, without turning to face me, she said, "Please do not encourage deviation. They're delicate, easily disturbed." I asked her point blank, "What is this place?" Her lips barely moved. "An institution for the forgotten. We care for those no one remembers." That night, I drove the entire route back from memory, but everything looked different. The roads were too narrow. The trees leaned in too close. My watch said 5:45, but the sun had long since vanished. When I got home, my phone had 17 missed calls, all from my landlord. I called him back, and he sounded stunned. "I thought you left town, man. Your place has been empty for days." "No," I said. "I was gone one night." He didn't respond. I checked my calendar. For days had passed. I never went back. But sometimes, around 3 a.m., I dream of that hallway. The buzzing lights. The synchronized voices. I still have the packet they gave me, the schedule. But here's the part that chills me the most. Each page is dated. October 3rd, October 4th, October 5th. The final page is dated October 12th, 1963. And scribbled across the bottom, in faint pencil, it says, "The children are not learning. They're remembering." When I was 13, I went to a sleepover that I still think about almost every night. It was the last time I ever stayed the night at someone's house, and to this day, I can't see a candle flicker without my skin crawling. It was in Hot Springs, Arkansas. My friend Noah invited a bunch of us over for his birthday, just a small group of guys from school. We all brought our sleeping bags, some snacks, and a bunch of dumb stuff we downloaded from the internet to scare each other. It was the first time his parents let him have a full sleepover in the basement, which felt like a big deal at the time. No parents hovering over us, just junk food, games, and ghost stories. There were 5 of us down there: me, Noah, his cousin Drew, and 2 other guys from school, Malcolm and Ezra. Around 11:30, after a few hours of Mountain Dew and garbage horror movies, we started daring each other to do stupid things. Bloody Mary in the bathroom mirror. Light as a feather, stiff as a board. The usual. Then Noah pulled out a printed sheet of paper he said he found online. It was titled The Double Candle Game. He said it was supposed to show you your other self. A version of you that followed you around but stayed just out of sight. The idea was that if you did this ritual exactly right, you'd catch it watching you. He laughed as he read it, like it was just some spooky internet nonsense. But something about the way he looked at me made my stomach twist. Like he wasn't just playing. Here's how it worked. Turn off all the lights. Place 2 identical candles at opposite ends of the room. Everyone sits in a circle around the first candle. One person, the anchor, stays silent while everyone else chants their full name in unison 3 times. The anchor blows out the candle. Then, everyone turns around and looks toward the second candle, which should still be lit. If it works, Noah said, you'll see your other self standing just outside the circle of light. We set it up mostly as a joke. Noah lit the candles, placed one near the stairs and the other at the far end of the basement, next to the laundry room door. The flame flickered strangely, not from wind, but like it didn't want to stay steady. I didn't volunteer to go first, but Noah picked me anyway. I remember feeling stupid as the others sat around me in a loose circle, all of them chanting my full name. 3 times, slowly, drawn out. Grayson Lee Morrow. Grayson Lee Morrow. Grayson Lee Morrow. The moment I blew out the candle, the air felt thick, heavy. We all turned toward the second candle. Nothing. No figure. No shadow. Just the faint glow near the laundry room. The others groaned and called it lame, but I couldn't stop staring at that candle. It was flickering harder than before, almost pulsing. Then Ezra said something that made my blood run cold. Hey, why is Grayson still over there? Everyone laughed, awkwardly, until they saw the look on his face. He wasn't joking. He was pointing toward the dark, just outside the second candle's glow. I said, "What the hell are you talking about?" But he didn't even look at me. He just kept staring toward the laundry room. Right there. Dude. He's standing there. I looked too. There was no one there. Just a faint shadow cast by the candlelight. But then Malcolm stood up. Nah, I see it too. He moved closer to the far candle, squinting like he was trying to focus on something. It's like it's Grayson, but not. What does that even mean? I asked. I'm right here. They didn't answer. Noah grabbed the flashlight and shined it toward the laundry room. The beam cut through the dark and landed on nothing. No one. Just the closed door and some old boxes. They all kind of shrugged it off, laughing like maybe they'd just psyched themselves out. Ezra muttered something about his eyes playing tricks, but I couldn't shake the cold knot in my stomach. That night, when we all finally laid down to sleep, I kept thinking about that shadow. At around 2 a.m., I woke up to go to the bathroom. The basement was completely dark, except for the faint orange glow of the candle still burning by the laundry room, somehow still lit. I walked past it slowly, trying not to look toward the corner, but I heard it. A breath, long, shaky, right behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But when I looked down at the cement floor, I saw something that didn't make sense. 2 sets of footprints. One pair, mine, leading toward the bathroom. The other, smaller, barefoot, leading toward me, then vanishing. I ran back to my sleeping bag and pulled it over my head. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, the candle was out. Noah's parents made us pancakes, and everyone acted like nothing weird had happened. But Ezra wouldn't look at me. And when I cornered him later and asked what he really saw, he just shook his head. It looked like you, but messed up. What do you mean? He glanced around, leaned in close, and whispered. Eyes too wide, like it didn't know how to blink. That sleepover was 10 years ago. I haven't talked to any of them in years. But 2 weeks ago, I got a message from Malcolm on Facebook. It just said, "Hey, did yours ever stop following you?" I didn't answer, because mine hasn't. I moved into my house in Madison County, Arkansas about 2 years ago, back when the market was still decent and you could buy a fixer-upper with a little land for under $150,000. I'd always wanted something quiet and rural. Just trees, a big yard, maybe a dog one day. The house was older, but solid. And best of all, I only had one neighbor, a guy named Lester. Lester was in his 70s and lived in the old trailer just across the gravel driveway that separated our 2 properties. First time I met him, he was out front in a rocking chair, smoking something that smelled like hand-rolled tobacco. Wore suspenders and a straw hat like he was pulled straight from a postcard. Friendly enough. Kept to himself. We only talked every couple of weeks, usually just short conversations over the fence. He once brought me a box of tomatoes from his garden. Told me to watch out for coyotes if I ever got a dog. Stuff like that. Solid old guy. The kind you just feel better having next door. Then one day, I noticed his rocking chair was empty. For a week. Then 2. Around week 3, I started to wonder if something had happened. I hadn't seen lights on at night. Mail was piling up in his box. His garden was going to hell? I walked over and knocked a few times, but got nothing. Eventually, I called the non-emergency line just to have someone do a welfare check. A sheriff's deputy came by the next afternoon. I watched from my porch as he knocked, peeked through windows, then walked around the back. He came back a few minutes later and told me, "Looks like Lester passed away. Probably natural causes." Body was in the back bedroom. That hit me harder than I expected. I didn't know him well, but something about having a neighbor die like that, alone, stuck with me. The deputy said they'd contact next of kin and send someone to clean out the place. About a week later, a new guy showed up. Same trailer, same rocking chair, same gravel driveway. He introduced himself as Todd. Said he was Lester's nephew and had inherited the place. Friendly enough, maybe early 40s, dressed in work boots and camo like most guys out here. He said he was gonna fix the place up a bit and maybe live there part-time. Something about him rubbed me the wrong way immediately. At first, it was little things. He kept asking me about my basement. Said he was curious how deep it went. He asked what the foundation looked like underneath. One day, he saw me with a shovel and joked, "Don't go digging too far, you might hit something Lester left behind." Then he laughed, like it was no big deal. He started working on Lester's trailer late at night. I'd see the light in the back room flicker on and off at 2 or 3 in the morning. Heard what sounded like hammering. Chains rattling. I told myself maybe he just worked odd hours. Then came the smell. At first, I thought it was a dead animal. Roadkill or something in the woods. But it didn't go away. It got worse. Thick, wet, like rotting meat. It would come and go, usually late at night, and always from the direction of his trailer. I asked him about it once and he just smiled. Said, "Old pipes. I'll get around to it." I started sleeping with my bedroom window shut, even on hot nights. One morning I came out to find muddy footprints on my back porch. Barefoot, wide set, like someone had been standing there in the middle of the night just watching. I asked Todd if he'd been out that way and he said no, then added, "You sure it wasn't Lester?" Then he grinned. That was the moment I realized I didn't believe a word he said. So I started digging. First, I tried to find Lester's obituary. Nothing. No death certificate either. I called the county coroner's office and got bounced around until someone finally told me they had no record of a deceased person at Lester's address. I asked about the welfare check I'd seen the deputy do. The woman on the line paused. Then she asked, "Are you sure that was a county deputy?" "Yes," I said. "Marked cruiser. Badge. Full uniform. Because we didn't send anyone out there." I hung up and sat in silence for a long time. That night, I woke up to a sound outside my window. Rocking. The soft creak of wood on wood. Back and forth. I pulled the curtain just a sliver. Todd was sitting in the chair, like always. But he wasn't facing the road. He was facing my house. His eyes were open wide, almost too wide. Like he was waiting for something. The next day, I called the title office and pretended to be a realtor. Asked about the deed transfer on Lester's property. They told me the last official owner on file was still Lester Gentry. No transfer. No probate. Nothing. I asked if a man named Todd had ever been connected to the address. "No one by that name," the clerk said. "Far as we can tell, the place has been unoccupied since October." It was now December. That night, I woke up to the sound of my basement door creaking open. Not the one upstairs, the one inside the basement. The one that leads to the old crawl space. I walked down the stairs with a baseball bat in one hand and my phone in the other, recording. There were muddy footprints on the concrete, and something scratched into the door. For letters. TODD. I moved out the next week. Didn't sell the place. Didn't tell anyone. Just left. Last I checked, the listing for Lester's trailer was still up on Zillow. Price recently reduced. No mention of the tenant.